Basic automation setups are helpful, but they will only take us so far. Automation gives the factory a goal. You might call it the what. We now turn our attention to logistics, which will give us the how. Skilled engineers can take a multitude of resources from various locations, locations that will change, transport them to and through the factory in a seamless, efficient flow that also allows flexibility for expanding the factory's capabilities when needed. And that is the complex task that we set our mind to now, beginning with removing all of our burner mining drills because we want to go electric, which is far superior. We're going to take a look at why. Get a handful of these up. The burner mining drills, 0.25 speed a second. Mining area is only 2x2. We don't really care about that. 12 pollution a minute and 150 kilowatts of fuel required to power them. And the electric mining drill is twice the speed, 0.5 per second, much larger mining area, pollution of 10 a minute, and electricity 90 kilowatts. Note that it does not have a minimum electricity like the inserter and the assembling machine did. And these don't look like it's that much of improvement in pollution and energy. But we don't really want to measure it this way because it's being measured by time per minute. But in actuality, what really matters to our factory is what is the pollution and energy output per unit, that is per resource item that you're going to get out of the ground. And since the electric mining drill is twice as fast, to really make this an apples to apples or a level playing field comparison, we've got to divide those numbers in half. So now we're looking at 5 pollution and 45 kilowatts for the same amount that we're going to get here out of the burner mining drill. And actually, we've got to upgrade the pollution just a bit more. It's going to go up to 5.75. That 0.75 is coming from the coal that's going to be burned in the boiler to produce the requisite energy. But that's still a 52% reduction in pollution and a 70% reduction in energy, which, since we're turning coal into energy, that's a 70% reduction in the amount of coal that we actually have to mine out, which means our coal mining drills are going to benefit even that much more. So if we switch these out now, we have a very clear path that we want to get rid of our burner mining drills and not speak to them again. So we're going to place these up here in this corner. And notice that we have this green square around it so that the mining area, that 5x5 area, is actually larger than the physical area of the mining drill itself. And that makes things quite easy. We're very used to where that yellow square is and rotating it around by now. What we want to do is just place it on the edge. So to do this northeast edge, and then as far as continuing to place more, well, this is something where there's a couple schools of thought. The main one is just click and drag, spam out as many mining drills as you can to fill up the patch, and then what that's going to do is it's going to mean you get the maximum output from this patch. Starts running low, then you move on. Well, I actually don't adopt that rule most of the time. And there are a couple reasons for that, but the main one is that when you start running out, you'll run out very quickly, and it's going to be very painful, particularly as a new player. If we look at this, we can see there's an overlap. So if we place them right next to each other, there's particular areas where both mining drills are operating off the same area. Whereas if you spread them out like so, now from here, these two are spaced just perfectly so that each of them is taking the areas around them, but they are not overlapping on the same part. Now, this will also require you to expand to more patches, but again, I think this works to your benefit in dealing with shortfalls. Because with one resource patch, it starts running low. If you have more resource patches that you're pulling from, then what's going to happen is you're not going to be hit as hard by that. So unless you really want to plan ahead and keep a close eye on all of your resources that you're bringing in, I think this really is effective for new players to not have a situation where they're doing fine, then all of a sudden their production falls off a cliff and it causes a crisis in their factory. Now we next need to look at our transport belts. And you can see the motion of them and also the arrows pointing in whichever direction. Now I'm going to start here and just move these to the west. And then we can see, okay, it's going to carry our coal this way. Let's see that in action by hooking up some power to our drills. And the green lights are telling us they're working. And boom, there comes the coal. Now notice that it's only going on the top half of the belt. Each belt has 2 lanes. And we can see on the right there, it has a speed of 15 items per second. That's taking both lanes into account. So it's 7.5 items per lane per second. But these are always going to empty onto the closest side. So if we want to make use of all the space on the belt for coal, and we do, then we are going to put more mining drills on the other side. Now, I don't want to put them all the way up here because then we're going to have, again, overlap, and they can mine just fine the area underneath, say the power pole and the transport belt. That's no issue. So we're just going to slide these two in here, and we're going to do what is known as side loading. And that just means when these come out, and let's go ahead and get our power connected. So they're working. Notice this is coming out onto the bottom side, but this one isn't. And that's because if you watch both of these, you can see that the coal is going out onto the right-hand side of the belt. And that's always the case when you're putting items onto a belt, regardless of method. You are going to have them go on the right side of the belt in the direction that the belt is going. So for example, if I were to turn this around this way, there we go. If I turn it this way, notice it's still on the right-hand side of the belt as it goes south. So always the right-hand side of the belt and the way it's facing. But here, this is all going on the top side because of that. So what I need to do is get another section of belt here. There we go. So now it's flowing in on the bottom where I want it to. We've got two going onto the top, two going onto the bottom. And you can see that these are now having yellow lights, saying they're waiting for space and destination. They've shut off, and they're not consuming any energy. So now that we have this coal on the belt, let's take it somewhere. Specifically, we are going to take it, I think we'll come out to about here, and then turn north. And we're going to bring it to our boiler. And to use it over here, we're going to grab ourselves a burner inserter. And this is the only situation I recommend using a burner inserter for. If we look at them, rotation speed is 216 degrees a second. This inserter, the one we've seen before, the electric yellow one, is not nearly as slow, 302 degrees. So the burner inserter is about a third, roughly, slower. And then the energy consumption, 13.6 kilowatts compared to 94. Goodness. So why would we ever use a burner inserter? Well, if you start running low on power, then you can have a cascade effect that will happen. Because, again, if you're going to watch your power closely, fine, you don't need to do this. But your burner inserters will not be affected by a lower amount of power, but everything else will in your entire factory that runs on power. So you're going to have your inserters are going to slow down, and your assembling machines are going to slow down, and your mining drills, even that are electric, are going to slow down. But this works as sort of a buffer against that, because since it doesn't draw power from the grid, it won't slow down. It'll still be able to insert the coal into the boilers. Whereas if this was an electric inserter, then this would slow down as well, which means your power generation gets further and further behind, and it just compounds on itself. So it's a nice safety against that. Plus, we're not going to be using very many of these, so the overall energy draw is not going to be that much. And I think one of the reasons that the consumption of fuel is as high as it is because no inserters pollute directly. So there's actually zero pollution coming off of this, but that's sort of compensated for by the fact that you have to use so much coal to make it operate, and the energy draw is so high. So let's see how these work. We're going to lower this down because it's not going to work if this is not below 5. So there we go. Now it's feeding itself a couple coal first. It wants to have at least a full unit in there. And now it's going to swing this in here until this gets up to 5. And then it's going to stop. You can see it's burned some of this coal, but as it needs more, it will continue to fill that up. This I thought was quite an interesting and instructive build, and this comes from a viewer who likes to set up something like this right away when you get power. So before you get transport belts, before you build up a bunch of assemblers, they're going straight to this to get electric miners in place of their burning mining drills. And so just going directly into the chest, and then the inserters going into the furnaces. And we, of course, need coal, but we can put that in the furnaces themselves or directly into the chest, and then the system will take care of it. There was also a viewer who had a question about this whole concept of multiple items in a chest and how do the inserters know what to choose. For example, in the last episode, we had the iron and copper plates in there. How does it pick one? Well, that's based on the machine. The machine determines it. Now, you wouldn't want to have iron and copper ore in a situation like this. You could bog down the furnaces because they can accept both of them. But That's usually used in a case like this particular assembler, which has copper cable, and we can simply notice that we can't put anything but copper plates in it. If we try to put iron plate in, it won't let us. If we try to put wood in it, it won't let us. Anything else I try to put in here that is not copper plate, and it will be denied. So the machine makes the determination, and the inserter basically is smart enough to recognize that, and that's how that all works. When Factorio Demystified returns, we'll build on what we've learned here with the items acquired in the logistics research.